I think we're facing a very serious crisis in this country, man.
I do too,
100%.
since the Clinton email scandal.
Yeah, so Hillary Clinton destroyed public record. Her team, I should be very careful, her people destroyed, using BleachBit, purged the server.
Hammers and phones.
Hammers on phones, destroying them.
Which is normal.
After she was subpoenaed to turn it over.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
She is still romping about, super wealthy. Joe Biden, we see this is happening. And, I tell you why I think we're headed for a very, very serious crisis. You've got a large group of people who understand the media is lying about literally everything. Okay, when I say literally, I mean figuratively.
And
I mean literally.
I don't
think they've told the truth once.
Well, no. In politics. But like when the New York Times talks about certain things, of course, I'm literally using ABC,
Yeah, of course.
source.
I don't think it's partisan either, because like the war in the Middle East, and then Halliburton, Dick Cheney's company, goes in and makes billions of dollars off
and
of
Joe Biden's
Boeing-
brother in Iraq makes millions of dollars.
And Boeing sponsors Meet the Press, and MSNBC is owned by General Electric, which supplies weaponry and tools to the military that they make a lot of money off of.
Dow Chemical makes pharmaceuticals and high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah.
No, they make a ton of
I
things.
don't know about that.
No, you guys
I'm
want to
not
know
sure
the
about
real
that one, but
conspiracy?
it's-
There's the real conspiracy. The real beauty campaign from Dove.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah. I love
yeah.
it.
I need to know about this.
You've seen it, right? All the women, they're like, plus size models.
Boring.
I remember this.
Do you know who owns Dove?
Big thing. Who?
Unilever. Do you know what other company that Unilever owns?
Oh no.
Ben and Jerry's.
Oh my
Oh,
goodness!
snap.
It was a trick calling. You know what my conspiracy theory is? What if Biden is faking his cognitive decline and he's actually a very sharp criminal mastermind, and he just
We're
doesn't
really
want to
in
get
trouble.
put on the stand?
I
He
love
knows
it.
as soon as
That's
they start
what I
asking
said.
him
He's gonna
questions.
Wonka us.
Yeah, he sure
It's
is.
gonna be inauguration date. He's gonna be like looking all silly, and then he's gonna fall backwards, do a perfect like backward somersault, and then be
Gotcha.
like, "Now I got you. I'm back, baby. I'm Joe Biden. This country is mine." And then a bunch of like Chinese guys
Jack.
run out, and they're like making it rain.
Oh man,
Anyway,
I'm looking forward to this.
we've got a bunch of. Now that we just made everything sound silly,
This is serious. We have to laugh or we're gonna cry. This is
Let's-
insane.
let-
How long has
let-
it been corrupt? Since Nixon?
No,
I mean,
it's
they-
just-
government? Oh, long
I don't know who
before. I mean,
assassinated
governments are
Kennedy.
almost
What do
always
you guys think about the Kennedy assassination?
No.
yeah, I don't know about all that, but
One
I
guy.
do know this.
No. We
Too far back.
got way too much. Look
Right.
at this.
Hold on. Look
I
at
want to
that.
highlight who James Rosen is.
this out.
James Rosen was investigated by the Department of Justice, Eric Holder, as a possible criminal co-conspirator
Whoa.
because he was reporting on the news. Fox News said, "We are outraged to learn today that James Rosen was named a criminal co-conspirator for simply doing his job as a reporter." Obama prosecuted more whistleblowers and
Yeah,
leakers
that's right.
than, I believe, all other presidents combined. This guy, Obama, not good on civil liberties.
I thought he was going
No,
to
not at
seal the
all.
Patriot Act, man.
Yeah, well, he talked about all the civil libertarian-esque things that he intended to do, and then he got in office, and his administration did a bunch of things that he supposedly didn't know about. That was the excuse that we heard for about 8 years. I remember my favorite was when the IRS was targeting and auditing conservative-leaning organizations,
Yep.
and that was just something the president didn't know anything about. Like, if Donald Trump had done that, that would be creeping fascism, but Obama didn't. I was like, well, he just didn't know, guys.
And
he wore a tan suit, and you freaked out about that. This is basically the same
Basically
thing.
the
I
same.
love somebody tweeted, don't you remember, like, don't you wish for the days when the only scandal was Obama's tan suit?
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And I'm like, I know, right? Like, he wore a tan suit and ordered a drone strike on a civilian restaurant in Yemen that killed a 16-year-old American citizen, but he wore a tan suit. Can you believe it?
What was it, like over 3,000 illegal drone strikes under his administration?
Well, Trump has upped drone strikes, and he deserves criticism for it. Trump's
100%.
Wow.
He's
His
kept
first-
us in Yemen. He's kept us aiding the Saudis and the
Yeah,
horrific
definitely.
human rights
Trump-
atrocities they're committing in Yemen. He's done bad things. for
Trump's
sure.
first several years, very bad. And John Bolton, huge mistake. One of the first things that Trump did when he got in was he ordered a commando raid in Yemen, which resulted in the death of a little girl. So Trump has his foreign policy blunders as well. I'm looking at the current trend of these peace agreements and withdrawing our troops, and I'm like, keep doing that, and you've got my support. Obama, however, was
A hawk.
a
Unopposed.
hawk, dude. Come on. He was some kind of strange hook Frankenstein flying
thing.
monster that was breathing
He was a
fire.
drone. He was literally
He was
a
literally
drone.
a human drone.
He's
Yeah.
a human drone. Well, no, that's the
Are
thing.
we allowed to say really awful, edgy jokes? We are, right?
I think
I don't know.
so.
I
You
don't
wanna
know
hear a
about
joke?
that. No, you're going to get
Yeah,
me in
let's do
trouble.
it.
You're
You
going
want
to
to
get all
hear?
of us in trouble.
You want to hear an
I don't.
Obama era joke?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
scared. No, I don't. I'm
It's about
afraid.
war. It's not about race or anything like
Okay,
that.
good.
You guys,
I'm
you
still
sure?
scared.
Sure, yeah.
Yes.
Just replace any words with any other words.
No.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's an Obama era joke. The leftists
We're
say
going
all
to
the
cut
time.
Tim's mic. No, I'm kidding.
You ready?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a school and a terrorist headquarters?
Oh, no.
I don't know. I just fly the drone.
Oh, that's horrible.
Oh God,
That's horrible. But
That's
no,
an old Obama.
It's horrible.
That's
There's
an
truth, though. There's
Obama
truth to
era
it,
joke. That's an Obama era joke.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
horrible. But there
is
is
horrible.
truth to the fact that there were a lot of civilians killed under Obama's watch, or despite the fact that he talked a big game about wanting to bring about world peace, despite the fact that he won a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, I love
Everyone
it.
Points that out. Everyone points
And
that
then
out.
you know what he did when they started killing civilians? They were like, well, you know, those guys, they're adult men.
Yeah.
So military age men.
Yeah,
So not civilians.
yeah.
That was the play.
It's horrific. It's horrific.
Obama bad, George Bush Jr. Obviously Middle East wars.
They're
Before
all
that,
bad.
Clinton
Well, they're all bad, right?
Before
But
that,
isn't
George Bush Sr.
isn't it kind of interesting that we were just discussing earlier some of the foreign policy blunders which have taken place under Trump, which is like kind of an understatement.
new
blunder.
wars.
Yeah, but the reality is he has been less hawkish than any other president of my lifetime, certainly. That said, funny that the media hasn't criticized him for any of that stuff. It's funny that the media hasn't criticized him for any of the people who have died because of his
Shocking.
foreign policy mistakes.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
I didn't know anything about
No,
the
it's
drone
not.
strike uppage.
Yeah,
I've heard
yeah,
about
definitely.
It.
Yeah, no, we never heard a thing
That's
about
what should
it.
be
It
on
wasn't
CNN,
a story.
man. If you
No,
really want to
no,
disrupt
and it's
his
not. Like I
base,
said, it's,
You,
yeah.
no. Don't you realize when Joe Biden gets elected, it's gonna be tenfold, man.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
gonna light
Don't
the
joke
floor
about
up.
it, dude.
Seriously?
Dude,
No.
I was talking to somebody I knew who was like, it's time, you know, everybody, you've got to go and vote for Joe Biden to stop this. And I said something like, I was like, I can totally understand why people don't like Donald Trump, you know, his character and some of the things he's done, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, you're just never going to be able to convince me to vote for the guy who was vice president while they were blowing up kids.
Yeah.
And the response was, what do you mean blowing up kids? Wow. Exactly. What do you mean blowing up? In New York, some activist did this art where it was one of these like NYPD advertisements.
Yeah.
And it showed, you know that silhouette image of like the father and the kids and they're holding hands and running. It's like
Yes.
an immigrant thing.
Yeah.
And then it showed a drone flying above and like a line with a missile flying towards them.
did Reagan get us into new war? Reagan, was he a
Oh,
war hawk?
man. I don't think I was alive.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was barely.
Oh yeah, I was too.
Carter.
when he left.
Carter, the media hated, and I think he really didn't get us into much war. Jimmy Carter. Before
He
that,
was probably a bit more dovish. He did. I mean, I'm not a fan of Carter, but he definitely was not as much of a hawk based
and
on
the
what I'm
media
aware
trashed
of.
that guy. Like
Yeah.
he's thought of as the worst
So-
He's a
president.
peanut farmer. I mean, I'm not
Yeah,
a fan of
peanut
him at all,
farmer.
but I hear you.
Right now, we have. It was really funny. I saw some leftist post on Facebook that Obama didn't get us into any new wars.
What?
And I was like,
How could you
"You're
say
in
that?
Syria? What are you talking about? Like,
They'll literally
you're in
just
Syria.
make anything up. They'll
Libyan
just-
intervention in Syria just right off the bat. Like, what do you mean?
Like no.
What about Yemen?
Yeah,
What
Yemen.
about the fact that he decided he wanted to placate the
Secret
Saudis
war.
after
That's the
making
problem with-
a deal with the Iranians, and now civilians?
cash.
Yeah.
That you can call Vietnam's wasn't a war. That's what's crazy about it. It was a military action because
Right.
they didn't have congressional
Yeah,
support.
exactly. Well, there was not
There
congressional
was never
approval
declared
of it.
war, so he
Exactly.
didn't have to declare war to kill hundreds of thousands of people.
Listen,
It wasn't a war. We just
There was-
killed hundreds of thousands of
Yeah,
people
it's
and
not-
sent our troops over
it's
there with
fine.
guns,
There
and
was-
a bunch of them died as well.
There was a really great article, and I think this was in The Intercept actually, which we'll get into next. That said something like, strangely, for the first time in several decades, the president is trying to withdraw forces, and it's Congress trying to stop him. Whereas historically, the president has been trying to deploy forces, and Congress has been trying to stop him.
Keeping the forever wars going to
Yep.
own Trump. Good.
And now,
Cool.
you know, the craziest thing is when I hear these like lefty friends of mine being like, well, actually, we definitely need a presence in Syria.
Actually.
What?
Yeah, no joke. We must maintain a presence
because
in
of
Syria.
the Russia fear.
And it's
no,
sad.
because of we must defend the Kurds.
I've noticed this as well, actually. That there's a friend of mine. I won't give too much information, but he has always just been very to the left, and he was always very against the wars from day one. I remember that seemed to be his primary issue under the Bush administration. He was always talking about how we shouldn't be involved in the Middle East. And now he's criticizing Trump for not wanting a presence in Syria.
I love
that
it.
makes him a Russian puppet. It's insane. It's completely insane. Like, people completely flip on their values. And you would think
don't
the
have any.
anti-war thing, the anti-war thing would be something the left would stick to.
There's
I
this-
wish.
Yeah,
I
know,
learned
they
my
wanna
lesson
wage
with
war on
Obama,
the
man.
unborn,
We had
so.
Sean, military commander. Remember he was
Parnell?
Sean Parnell.
Parnell came on and was explaining why we don't want to just pull every troop out all at once
Right.
because it creates a vacuum that then will be filled by like
ISIS.
military warlords and things
Yeah.
like
by
that.
the people we create, by the people we funded.
Exactly.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's
Right.
a problem we created, but pulling out isn't the solution
No,
to the
that's
problem.
what they
was
say.
his
They say
argument.
that
No,
every time.
You're incorrect.
Oh, continue.
He said that we absolutely need some kind of presence, but we can pull it down. We can
Right.
draw it down like significantly.
Slowly, without
Yeah,
pulling out all at
well,
once.
he said we can take a lot of our current forces out of these places and still maintain a small enough presence to prevent the vacuum from creating.
But like my friend who was in the military in Afghanistan, Charles Maxwell, shout out Charles if you're watching, said they just don't want to fight. Those guys, the Iraqis, the Afghanis, they just don't. Not only did they not really, for the most part, they didn't want to fight. They didn't know how. They weren't.
It's
trained.
not our responsibility.
Well, we created it.
Exactly.
Listen. You know, I think it was Ron Paul who said something like,
My man.
He said something like, people keep saying, oh, but if we pull out now, this, that, or that will happen. And he goes, when you're a doctor and you've given someone the wrong medication, you don't simply say, well, we better just keep you on it. You say, we better get you off this.
Yes.
And so there's been no effort, in my opinion at least, to do something about this. And at a certain point, look, I understand there's bigger arguments about, oh, the Chinese will move in or Russia will move in or whatever. And it's like, you know what, man? Do the American people agree that we should be sending our, men and women in uniform overseas just to live and build roads and build cities there and be effectively the government because the people there don't want to run it? I don't think they do.
No, of course not.
But the problem is when you elect a president who says, I'm going to end our forever wars, and then he tries and Congress blocks him, it's clear based on what we see with the media, what we're seeing with Joe Biden, what he gets away with, what the FBI, who they prosecute, who they don't, how Michael Flynn gets charged, how you get all this Russiagate nonsense. You know it's a big club and you ain't in it. You can see who is. And as long as you support their war machine, you're good. So when Donald Trump ups drone strikes, you didn't even hear about it.
Nope, it's
Because
not a big deal to
they,
them.
they can't criticize that. Because then what happens if when Joe Biden wins, and then they're going to be like, hey, remember you talking about drone strikes? What's Biden doing? Oh, well. We like them now.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Joe Biden is such a hawk. He was pushing for war in Iraq as far back as 1997.
Can you explain? Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
Well, what I wanted to get into really was the fact that we were gloating in the late 70s about the fact that we had essentially given Russia their quote-unquote own Vietnam by getting them involved in the Middle East and by funding the Mujahideen.
Yeah.
And there were some people arguing that part of the reason that this actually accelerated the collapse of their government, it increased social instability. They were spreading themselves too thin by trying to be involved in this region. Whether or not you agree with all that, it's kind of ridiculous that our strategy was to get them involved in the Middle East and fund different terror groups, which we didn't call them back then. We just called them rebellions.
Freedom
and now that we're
fighters.
fighting against them, rebellions, freedom fighters. Now we're fighting them and they're terrorists. But we seem to think that it would be the worst possible thing for Russia to get involved in that region. So we tried to get them involved and we funded their enemies. And then we literally fell into the same trap like a decade later and we're still there.
Yep. No, I get it. Look,
and we're also fighting the people we gave weapons and
Yeah.
this is a repeating pattern though, right? We created Al Qaeda and then we created ISIS.
The idea is of limited war. They want limited war.
We
so
want
that
proxy-
we don't have total war. It's
well,
basically they're trying to avoid a world war.
Sort of, but also there's this really insidious thing where, so when you look at what happened in Libya and the fact that we decided for whatever reason that having Gaddafi remain in power was no longer something that was politically advantageous for us.
Didn't you want some kind of African Union of some sort or something? I'm not.
He wanted to
Yeah,
nationalize
I'm not exactly.
the oil. I know that.
I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was, but I know that they ended up funding a coup against him, and essentially the people dragged him out into the street, castrated him, sodomized him, and murdered him.
There's
Yeah,
video.
well, I mean, I apologize, but the reason I'm being graphic here is because this is something that obviously we could never do to a foreign leader with our military. But if we fund a coup that does something horrifically cruel to a foreign leader, maybe we're just a little bit more intimidating, but we haven't violated the Geneva Convention.
And then if we ever want to go in and overthrow them, they did some horrible war crimes. So
yeah, man.
we've got an excuse.
Yeah.
After all that happened, I know some people who were doing work with in diplomacy, international relations, and I was told one story about how after Libya was completely destabilized, you had essentially a Goblin King type scenario, where you know how the Goblin King works.
Oh, I do.
No.
To become Goblin King, you kill the Goblin King, and then you're the Goblin
that's
King.
right,
So it's
yeah.
a cycle of just kill, and then everyone piling the bodies on top and trying
Like the Roman Empire.
So you had all these different militia groups, different sects, constantly fighting, taking over. And there was one point where when they finally got I'm doing air quotes here, stable government, one of the militias just walked in for a meeting and pulled the pin on a grenade and slammed it on the table.
Ugh.
That was one of the stories I heard from one of these people working in,
Wow, dude.
It's
crazy.
insane.
Yup. We're in charge now. Boom, grenade on the table.
And that's the sad thing. It seemed, or I should say, it seems, or it has seemed for a number of years that no matter which party is in power, this is ongoing. But Trump has actually been trying to remove us from this. And I don't know if it's because he has these sort of bleeding heart humanitarian concerns that we might have, but he realizes that this isn't good for the American people.
Yeah, it's a waste of money.
It's a waste of money.
The reason, okay.
And a waste of human life, and it increases social instability. There's nothing there for us.
Right.
After World War II, so I think to explain the counterpoint a little bit, they created the military-industrial complex Dwight D. Eisenhower talked about where they started building American military bases all over the world to prevent World War III. Because World War II happened because everybody was isolated. One country
and now
got
we had
two.
nukes.
And now, a bunch of people have nukes, and we have all these military bases. And the fear is if we disarm and withdraw, that another country will just fill that gap.
Yep.
And maybe they would. That's the counterpoint.
Could you imagine if some other country was trapped in a 2-decade-long foreign entanglement that was draining their resources?
Military bases in Canada and in Mexico and nuclear submarines off the coast of Washington, D.C. I mean, could you? That's literally what we've got over there. It's crazy.
Right. I'm saying I think it's time we bring our troops home. And you know what? I'd be willing to have, in that conversation with Sean Parnell, maintaining a much, much toned down presence just to prevent, ISIS from forming and things like that.
Well, it's funny. There's this whole debate over whether or not we should have a tiny presence there or no presence there. I think we should cross that bridge when we get to it. Let's just get the presence limited to some degree before we debate whether or not we should completely remove ourselves from these regions.
It has to definitely has to do with diplomacy with China and Russia.
Like, let's just not start a new war. Like, let's not
we?
start a new war
Trump
every
hasn't.
10 years. And he hasn't.
And
This
they're
is the first
mad.
the first president in 40 years. The first president in 40 years to not start a new war. And on top of that, this is hilarious, they start saying without any evidence that he was colluding with the Russians. And we saw back in 2012, Romney, who is the poster boy for the neoconservative foreign policy and sort of establishment conservatism, trying to push for an escalation of tensions with Russia, claiming that they're our next big foreign policy threat. The Democrats have also adopted that position now. And isn't it awfully convenient that that's the foreign power that they claim Trump was conspiring with without any evidence? Because when he doesn't want to escalate tensions with them, that's just proof. That's just evidence that he's really working for them.
Yep.
Wow.
Or when he says, I don't want a missile strike, he's doing what Putin wants.
Yeah.
It's Putin's bidding. Can you stop for just one moment? Everybody listening, hear these words. Just think about how the past 4 years and even to this day, they are saying that Donald Trump is secretly working for Vladimir Putin.
Psychotic.
My favorite thing.
Psychotic.
So y'all heard about Tucker Carlson and, his documents go missing.
Yeah.
Tucker never said he didn't have any copies. He never said that. Obviously. And I actually was talking, someone mentioned to me there are copies. It's just, I guess Tucker's point was we were shipping documents and someone intercepted them. Now, apparently UPS found them, which makes sense. Someone wanted to see what he had. They went through it. They put him back. If that's the case.
Probably made copies of them.
But Jonathan Chait for New York Mag writes, Tucker says he lost the only copies of evidence that would nail Biden. He never said that.
Media is at it again.
He never said that.
What a shock.
And more importantly, Jonathan Chait is the guy who went on MSNBC and said that it's possible Donald Trump was a Russian asset since 1987.
Well, of course it's possible.
No.
Anything's possible.
No. That would imply Donald Trump was a Soviet asset.
Possible.
That's right. We talked about this.
Yes.
We talked about
man.
this.
The
Yeah,
Soviet
Donald Trump
Union
was
is secretly still in
Dun, dun,
existence.
dun.
It's possible
And
that
he's
he
been
has
working
like
with
30 cows in his
Wait,
tower
wait.
right now.
Could you imagine this idea that like Trump was an asset of the Soviets and the Soviet like institutions are still in effect? Poland is just keeping it secret and we don't know. And all the people who live there don't know either.
Well, it's hilarious because
East Germany.
Well,
That's right. They're still there.
that is like the most paranoid, far-right conspiracy theory
It's
I've ever
underground,
heard
dude.
in my life,
man. It's
but
all
it's the
underground.
left wing which is espousing it.
underground, yeah.
The idea that the USSR is still operating and the president of the United States. Like, don't get me wrong.
USSR.
I believe that Russia has spread her errors, but the idea that they're still functioning as a communist government in some limited capacity and that the president of the United States is their puppet is totally insane. Or maybe they could be arguing that after the USSR fell apart, there was new management and Trump just decided to stick around.
Yes.
I don't know.
So-
but I'm
so-
not sure why he would have been loyal to the communist government in the first place. I don't understand it.
Because he's wanted money.
Wanted money,
I guess?
yeah.
I don't know.
We
man.
should be upholding Russia, in my opinion, as a beacon of hope of what you can do with a communist regime.
What you can do once you
No,
balkanize.
no.
They
No.
democratized their
I don't know,
communism. They
man.
overthrew
Do you know-
their Soviet party.
And
They
then
kinda just fell
oligarchs
apart.
went
Yeah,
around with
exactly.
guns.
Same in the United States. We've got oligarchs running the
You know
show
what the
with
crazy?
guns.
You know what the
like the
craziest thing
Russians,
is? Let me tell you a story.
Not like the Russians.
We got a story.
The crazy thing is about the fall of the Soviet Union, and I'm far from an expert, but I have a friend. I know people who are in Ukraine and people from Poland and stuff. I asked, like, how is it that Ukraine has all these oligarchs, people who have ridiculous sums of money? They're wealthy by American standard, like they're billionaires, And the people of Ukraine, their GDP, like they make an average of like $400 a month. And I had a friend who told me after communism collapsed, all of a sudden you had these communist workers in a factory shrugging at each other. What do we do? How do we, do we keep making stuff? And then all of a sudden one day, a guy walks in with two other dudes and they all have guns. And he says, we're going to tell you what you do. You take orders from me now. And they went, you got it, boss. And that was it. There was no more power. It was a vacuum. So the dudes who picked up the guns went around and just took the factories, and then it was theirs.
You know, I tried to watch a documentary about the transition from the Soviet to the, what do you call it, the Democratic Republic of Russia. What is it? The United...
I have no idea.
Whatever the
Federation,
Russian...
the Russian Federation.
And it's the dude with the Gorbachev. And he and like a group.
You pointed your head.
Yeah, with the birthmark.
Yeah.
On his forehead.
Didn't he do a Pizza Hut commercial and it was like
Oh,
this
I hope
huge
so.
big thing?
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like the
remember
end
seeing a
of
clip of
communism.
that. Yeah.
They basically
Communism
just
fell. Hey, did you know
voted it one
that?
day.
Did you know that Trump did a Domino's commercial?
Yes.
So
he did a Pizza Hut
are there
commercial
really-
too.
Are
Was
there
he in a
any
Michael Jackson
coincidences?
video?
Trump
No, he was in Home Alone.
Trump did the eat the pizza backwards thing with the
Yes.
stuffed crust.
Said
That guy.
only half. That one.
What was it?
Dude, when he,
Oh,
when
right,
the woman goes,
yes,
she's like,
yes.
I get the pizza. He goes only half.
That was his first wife, wasn't it?
Did everyone working for the
Ivana?
USSR get a Pizza Hut deal? Is
That'd
that
have
what
been cool.
happened?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
No, that was the fall of the Communist Party.
My point about the transition from the Soviets to the Russian Federation is that it was very obfuscated. I don't know how it happened, what happened, and maybe it was behind the scenes a bunch of oligarchs.
You know, the craziest thing was I don't know if you was it you telling me this? Who told me this? Oh no, I think it was Michael Malice. That after the fall of communism and these documents, like these dossiers on all the people were released, like their darkest secrets, there was just like a code of silence where everyone knew like the really awful things others had done and just agreed not to bring it up because everyone knew what they did too. It's like a really crazy thing.
That is really sad. That's like-
Anyway,
yeah.
Donald Trump, not an asset of the Soviet
You're
Union.
sure?
No.
Doubtful.
We don't
But
know
this
that for
It
sure.
is
Tim.
possible.
A lot of things are possible. It's possible that
0.01%.
it's possible
0.000.
that all of the pollsters are colluding with each other.
It is possible.
And laughing and saying, add a one. Change that negative to a plus.
It's possible
And they
that
high five.
We actually wouldn't know.
It's true.
Wouldn't that be funny if like all the polls are actually inverted and they're like, oh, we got another one. It's -5 for Biden. Just put another line to the minus. It's like
funny,
+5 for Biden. No, I
double
don't know, man.
negative.
Yeah, man.
It's gonna be interesting nonetheless. I'm looking at it's really funny on Twitter. You see all the leftists with their like electoral college predictions, and it's like Joe Biden 350 something, Donald Trump like 210, and then you have all the right wing people. It's inverted. It's like Donald
Right.
Trump 30 something, and whatever. I will say though, Trafalgar Group on November 8th, 2016, tweeted out the exact electoral college breakdown. Trump 306, Clinton 232.
snap.
And then a day later, the results came in. They got 3 states wrong. They said Wisconsin was going to be, I think, red, or I don't know. I don't know which one. I think yeah. They said New Hampshire would be red, and Wisconsin would be blue, and Nevada would be red. But Nevada and New Hampshire, I think, went blue, but Wisconsin went red, giving Trump the extra 10 that put him to 306. So no one knows what's going to happen. Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.